Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place. Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday night, and it's time for Friends and Fiction. It's our favorite night of the week, and we hope it is for you too. I'm Kristin Harmel.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
I'm Patti Callahan Henry.
And I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support independent bookstores, authors, and librarians. Tonight, we'll be welcoming Nguyễn Phan Quế Mai and Sarah Penner, 2 amazing authors and friends of the show, both of whom have new novels out this month. We cannot wait to get started.
You know, we're here to bring you incredible authors, hot reads, and fascinating interviews, all while supporting independent booksellers. And one way you can help us support indies is to buy from them when and where you can, or to visit our own friendsandfictionbookshop.org page, where you can find Quay Mai and Sarah's books and books by the 4 of us and all of our guests at a discount.
Speaking of friends, we want to get to our friend Quay Mai quickly tonight since she has an 11-hour time difference. Where is she, Kristin?
Kyrgyzstan, I think you say it. I'm so bad with pronunciations.
I'm not going to say that. You're really, really good. So that's why I asked you. With an 11-hour time difference. Oh my goodness. So we are pre-taping because it's the middle of the night for her. So quickly, you hear us talking about our amazing Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa every week. Make sure that you join their Facebook page so that you can be there this coming Monday, March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, when they welcome our friend Sadiqa Johnson to talk about her new novel, The House of Eve, which you might have heard was the February Reese Witherspoon pick.
And of course, we have our Writer's Block podcast that drops every single Friday. On our Facebook page, we will always post a link to the newest episode, or you can find it on our Friends and Fiction podcast channel, which I know you've subscribed to, right? You've subscribed to it? Okay. So on our most recent episode, which is out right now, Ron and I talked to Jessa Maxwell about her new novel, her debut novel, adult novel called The Golden Spoon. It is so good, y'all. It's a murder mystery set at a baking show. And then coming this Friday, March 17th, Ron and Mary Kay will be talking to Jenny Jackson about her new novel, which is the Good Morning America book club pick for March, called Pineapple Street. So listen, review, subscribe, and share with a friend if you like what you hear.
All right, ladies. So let's start tonight by introducing our first guest of the evening, our friend Nguyễn Phan Quế Mai, who taught us Vietnamese proverbs back in April 2021 on a bonus episode of our show, and will no doubt impart some incredible wisdom tonight, too.
No pressure on the incredible wisdom. No pressure.
Oh my gosh, it comes out of her pores. Everything she says is incredible.
I know.
Dr. Nguyễn Phan Quế Mai is an award-winning Vietnamese writer and journalist. She is the author of 11 books of poetry, short fiction, and nonfiction.
Her debut novel and first book in English, that just blows my mind, The Mountains Sing, is an international bestseller, a finalist for the 2021 Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and the winner of many other literary awards, including the 2020 Lannan Literary Award Fellowship, who hailed her contribution to peace and reconciliation.
Beautiful. She has a PhD in creative writing from the UK's Lancaster University. She currently divides her time between the countries of Vietnam and Kyrgyzstan, which is a mountainous country in Central Asia, just to the west of China. Her new novel, Dust Child, was just released yesterday, and we are thrilled to announce that it's our March pick for the Friends and Fiction Behind the Book book club with our friends at Fable. So if you're not a member yet, visit fable.co, not com, co, Friends in Fiction for a tree. You could get a tree for a free trial membership and read Dust Child along with us.
Now, Dust Child is a suspenseful and moving saga about family secrets, hidden trauma, and the overriding power of forgiveness set during the Vietnam War and in present-day Vietnam. And we cannot wait to discuss it over on the Fable app for the next month and to talk to Quay Mai about it tonight. Sean, can you bring Quay Mai on? Hi, Quay Mai. Welcome. We're so happy to see you.
Sorry, I didn't know that you selected Dust Child for your book club, and I'm just so emotional. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the, honor of being here with you guys. I mean, Mary Kay, Kristin, Patti, and Kristy, the four of you are my inspiration. You're not just award-winning and best-selling novelists. You've done so much to uplift other writers and contribute to diversity in literature. I've loved watching your shows, and I have learned so much from each of you. So thank you so much for having me here. I was thinking about just today about, the time when I was selling things on the street, working on the rice fields and trying to make ends meet and having this dream of becoming a writer. And I still can't believe that I'm here. And thank you so much.
We're humbled by you.
My, that was.
Okay.
Did I not tell you beautiful things? Just. Oh my gosh, Quay Mai, you were absolutely incredible. We are honored.
She's going to get invited back. That's all I'm going to say.
I know, exactly.
I was just thinking I couldn't be here without people like you, because you championed my book without knowing much about you back in, 2020, when I was like unknown, a writer from Vietnam, writing in a second language and using my dictionary, no less, in writing my books. So, as you can hear, I'm not fluent in English. I'm still learning every day. But having your support is just so amazing to me. I'm just amazed. And I need to thank the production team. I saw Megan before, and she's just been so amazing, and so many people who work behind the scene. And, I love every show that you do so regularly. And I want to thank everyone who's watching us. I love this community. And I once said that a book is dead if it has no readers. Yeah. So by reading our books, you keep our work alive. So thank you so much for reading our books and for being here with us and celebrating this friends and fiction community, which is one of the best literary communities that I know. I love you guys, Thank you so much.
Mai. Oh my gosh. Well, I nominate Quay Mai as our ambassador for
I will be so happy.
While she has those 14 hours on the plane, she can.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Quay Mai, thank you so much. That was so kind of you. Now, the last time you were with us, Quay Mai, you taught us some Vietnamese proverbs. And if all of you out there have not seen that video, it is truly one of my favorite Friends in Fiction episodes ever. You can find it on YouTube by going to our channel and searching for her name. But tonight, Quay Mai, I know you're going to teach us some Vietnamese words with tonal marks. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask each of you, do you have a favorite proverb or saying? Patti, how about you?
I know it won't surprise you. I'll pick something Irish or Gaelic, but I have a novel that's years old, maybe a decade old now. I think even more. I think it's about 12 or 13 years old, called When Light Breaks. And every chapter in that book starts with an Irish proverb. But in the Gaelic language, they know that one word means so much more than one word. So they have this phrase for trust that I just love. It's for trust for someone you love. And it's, you are the place where I stand on the day when my feet are sore. That whole phrase means trust. You are the place where I stand on the day when my feet are sore.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful. Oh, I love that. How about you, Mary Kay?
Well, mine isn't as beautiful and lovely as that. But my maternal grandmother was from Indiana, and she had lots of interesting sayings and proverbs. And one of my favorites, well, there's two. One is, it's just as easy to make a friend as it is to make an enemy. And then May say that a lot. And she also used to say that you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
It's a good one. I like that. How about you, Kristy?
Oh, that's a good one. So I love the Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I don't know. I think about that a lot when I'm like, oh, I don't know. It'll take too long. I can't do it. It's too hard. And I'm like, well, it's going to be harder in 10 more years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's true. Oh, I like that one too. How about you, Quay Mai? Do you have a favorite proverb you can share with us?
Oh, I have so many proverbs that I love. I grew up with proverbs around me. So let me quote for you a proverb about the value of patience. So when I was growing up, my two brothers and I were very naughty. So sometimes my father would get upset at us. So my mom would say, mưa dầm thấm lâu, soft and persistent rain penetrates the earth better than a storm. So whenever my father heard it, he reminded himself to be soft and persistent rain, not being the storm. Yeah, so I think about that proverb all the time.
I love that one. And Quay Mai, I meant to say to you earlier, you said your English isn't perfect, but it sounds perfect to me. I think you speak remarkable. It's better, I think you speak remarkable English, Quay Mai. I think it's just incredible.
I'm still learning every day. I have a phrase book. I note down new words that I'm learning every day. So it's part of my inner thinking. So when I write, it's faster. But when I write in English, I still have to check the dictionary. When I write in Vietnamese, it's much, much easier. So I'm like a bit crazy by telling myself I can do this, writing in English.
Well,
it's awesome.
The poetry translates, though. I mean, it's beautiful. I think you write so poetically in English.
Yeah,
so I think I will share my proverb too, which is also Gaelic, like Patti's. My mom's side of the family is Irish, so that's a big part of my cultural background too. And I'm going to try to say it actually in Gaelic, which is Ershgal.
Oh, I did not even try.
I practiced it. Ershgal Hela a Warren Nadina, which literally means people live in each other's shadows. What it essentially means is that through the shelter of other people, we survive. So I love that. We all need each other. And I think that's kind of one of the themes of Friends in Fiction too. So, all right, Quay Mai, Dust Child, which has been named a must-read title by both the Los Angeles Times and the Chicago Review of Books, follows the story of two Vietnamese sisters in 1969 who leave their village and become bar girls, as well as the stories of a Vietnam veteran and finally, a man who is the son of a Black American soldier and a Vietnamese woman. Past and present converge as these characters come together to confront decisions made during a time of war. And of course, these are decisions that force them to look deep within and find common ground across race, generation, culture, and language. So we know the basics of what the story is about. But Quay Mai, what is the book really about at its heart?
So, this book took me 7 years to write. And it's really and can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
So in 2015, I worked as a journalist and I wrote this article. I interviewed, a group of American veterans who had been going back to Vietnam to look for the children and the women they once abandoned. And they, like many of them had been spending all of their savings to go back to Vietnam. And so few people know about that. So I asked one of the veterans to write a letter to the woman he was looking for to tell her why he had abandoned her during the war when she was pregnant and why he was going back to look for her. So I translated his letter and published it as part of my article. And you know what? 3 weeks later, a woman emailed me and she said, Quay Mai, I haven't used an email in my life, but I just went to internet cafe, asked someone to set up this email and asked them to type you. Can you call me? And she gave me 2 phone numbers. I called her. I was in Belgium at that time. I called her who was in Vietnam. After 15 minutes of talking with me, she said she's the one in the letter. She's the one in this photo.
Oh my goodness.
And she told me she had not told anyone for more than 40 years. Even her husband and children did not know that she had given birth to a mixed race child, daughter of an American veteran, and she had to give the child away. And she told me throughout, more than 40 years of not being able to share the story, she cried to herself every night, and she missed her child, and she regretted the decision. And then she told me, can you connect me with a veteran? I did not think that he could go back and look for me because he had walked away from me. So I connected her with them, and they cried so much. And he went back to Vietnam and met with her. And through my journalistic work, and I have helped quite a few people find each other. And it's just the stories are just incredible. I just translate. I've been spending the last few weeks translating for a reunion between a soldier or a veteran who lives in Ohio, who went to Vietnam as a soldier, and did not even know for more than 40 years that he had a child in Vietnam. Because he just had a casual affair, or he had no idea until one of his nephews did a DNA test and found a relative in Vietnam. And everyone said, why do I have a relative in Vietnam? And they asked him, and he said, no, that's impossible. He denied it. So his daughter went for DNA test and found sibling relationships. And so he went for the DNA test and confirmed 100% parent sibling relationship. So I translated for the reunion on video, and it was so emotional. And he just went back to Vietnam, and I was traveling for my book events, but I was translating for them at 4:00, 3:00 in the morning because of the time difference. But that was the best thing I could do, using my kind of understanding of different situations. And because there can be a lot of misunderstandings, cultural misunderstanding if you're not careful. And he's also suffering from PTSD. So you have to brief the people of what he's been going through. And I prepared him for the trip back to Vietnam. And but I mean, all of my writing is very much connected to real life. So this book, That's Child, is really inspired, by real life stories. I worked for 7 years on it, and I interviewed so many people, and there are so many real life stories that are woven in here. And they're just unbelievable because in real life, the experiences of these people are just unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Quay Mai, as you just touched on, you have a distinct cast of characters here in Dust Child who take us through the experiences of the Vietnam War and its aftermath. There's Phong, the orphan child of a Vietnamese woman and an American soldier, who we see both as a child and as an adult. There's Dan, the Vietnam vet, still wrestling with the war and the role he played in it. And there's Trang, a young Vietnamese woman searching for a better life during the war. At first, it seems the three stories feel disconnected, but as the novel progresses, you weave their stories closer together. Could you talk to us about why you chose those three different viewpoints to tell the story?
Because there has been no book that has been written about Amerasians and their parents. Even though, during the Vietnam War, nearly 100,000 of mixed-race children were born, and they were, a lot of them were abandoned because the fathers were very young soldiers. They did not want to accept responsibilities, or they didn't know. And the mothers were poor. They were bar girls, or their families did not accept them in their pregnancies. So they had no choice but to give the kids away. And I just wanted to document the experiences of these women, what drove them into these decisions, and how difficult it was for them. And also, I wrote this book because I was frustrated, because whenever I watch, a lot of the time when you watch, Hollywood movies or read Western literature about Vietnam that represent, bar girls, these bar girls normally appear as victims, those who need to be rescued by men.
bar girls, you're saying, right? Girls who worked in the bars in Saigon and the like. Okay.
Exactly. So normally they are seen as very stupid, very naive, opportunistic, or victims who need to be rescued by men. And I interviewed many of them, and they are very complex and beautiful women who went through a lot to save their families, and I think some of them made the decisions to put the children into orphanages as a way to save them. So there are just so many layers of complexity. And I think it was very crazy of me to attempt something that I thought was impossible, that I wrote in the voice of a white man who's a traumatized helicopter pilot. So to be able to write then in this book, I had to study helicopter, interviewed a lot of people who had experience with the helicopters, and also because of my years working with American veterans, translating for them when they are back to Vietnam. And I think without these years of working with the people involved in this field, I couldn't have been able to write this book. So I just wanted, a book that talks about the strength that we all have within all of us, the power that we have within each of us to reshape our lives despite of our circumstances, so that we can offer healing, not just for ourselves, but to those around us. So Dust Child is very much an anti-war novel. It is a call for peace and for humans to love humans more. I really believe that regardless of our nationality and backgrounds, we are all brothers and sisters. We're all children of Mother Earth, and we should love each other more.
You're so right.
Quay Mai. I mean, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things about historical fiction is this ability, I'm getting choked up, but it's this ability to bring back something that I had no idea until you wrote Dust Child about that, right? We only have what we've been told or seen in movies, and you bring a different light. And there is this line early in the book from the perspective of the Vietnam veteran. His name is Dan. And he says, Vietnam had made him believe that God had little power over a world that was so in love with war. And that is such a powerful statement, so in love with war. Do you think that, you just talked about us seeing it from a different perspective, do you think that war has the power to change the way a soldier or a civilian sees the world?
Definitely. I was born into the war, and I grew up seeing the war devastation. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I was standing on my village field looking at the bomb craters, the people who had lost their arms and legs. I tell you this story. One day I was walking to school, and I saw a mother dangling from a tree branch. She had killed herself because her children did not come back from the war. So as a child, I told myself, the human race would not be so stupid to wage another war. I was so sure of it. And now I look at Ukraine, we are so powerless. We detest the war, but we can't do much because there's so much power, so much propaganda behind each war, And I don't know, as a child, I thought humans would learn from our mistakes, but we don't. We keep finding excuses, and so I don't know. I fear that one day we would destroy ourselves with the things we do to each other, with the things we do to nature. It's a sad reality, but I have friends here. A lot of Russians have to flee to Kyrgyzstan, where I live now, because they don't want to be a part of the war, and they have to leave their families behind. They have to move here, without a job, without housing. They just have to survive and wait until this war is over. So wars, and I know a lot of people from Ukraine. The people who don't have heating when it's so cold now, the children who then don't have even lighting to study, and people have to struggle every day and have to survive. And I'm having all this comfort, and I'm asking myself, am I entitled to this? And it's terrible, because all people suffer in wars. Russian people suffer. Ukraine people suffer in this war. And in Vietnam, we have this very famous saying by a Vietnamese poet, Nguyễn Duy, who wrote, nói cho cùng, trong mỗi cuộc chiến tranh, phe nào thắng thì nhân dân đều bại. In the end of each and every war, whoever wins, the people always lose.
Yeah, so true. It is so true.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That's really powerful. This whole show is really,
I know.
Wow.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah.
But one of the things that struck me about Dust Child is that you wrote the Vietnamese words and names the correct way, using tonal marks rather than anglicizing them. So can you tell us a little bit about what tonal marks are and talk about why you decided to do that, and maybe teach us some Vietnamese words with tonal marks?
Thank you so much, Kristy, for this fun question. So, this is my name. As you can see, it has all the little marks on them, And when I started to prepare for the publications of my book in English, The Mountain Sing, at first, I was thinking, if I abbreviate my name, remove the tonal marks, people would remember it. I would sell more books, right? Mm. But then I told myself, I want to respect the Vietnamese culture because of our, we are a country with more than 4,000 years of history, but we have been colonized by so many empires. First, the Chinese, the Mongolians, the Japanese, the French, and, because of colonization, we've lost so much of our, culture and language. Like when the Vietnamese language, whenever we are published as part of the Western text, we're expected to remove the diacritics. And I feel this is the process of colonization, because we have to change our language to please the eyes and ears of the Western readers. So I told my publisher, I'd rather sell less book than dishonor my language. So I thank everyone who is reading my work, because you decolonize literature about Vietnam by accepting and embracing our language. And, talking about the diacritics. So let me teach you a few words, right? Using one example of this word, bo. Can you say bo?
Bo.
Ba.
Bo. So, so if the word bo in Vietnamese, whatever marks is published in the Western text, as part of the English text, normally it appears as bo, but actually it has many different meanings. Bo.
Ba.
Bo.
Bo. Bo means mistress.
Oh.
Yeah. This is bo.
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 Ba.
Bo means father.
Wow.
These are very different.
This is another one. It is called bo.
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 Ba.
Bổ means to chop or nutritious.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. I would do every single, I would call a father a chop and a chop a mistress.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not making this up. These are real from one word. Yeah.
Okay.
Bo. Can you say bo?
Bo.
Ba.
Bo. Bo means pathway, you know, like go by the road.
Wow.
Yeah. Bo.
Bo.
Ba.
Bo means toilet.
Wow.
So your father can be a toilet.
Or your mistress.
Your mistress.
Yeah.
This one is ba.
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 Ba means bank.
Wow.
Bank of a river. And this one is, can you guess?
No.
Ba.
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 Ba means but this means to kiss someone's ass.
Oh my goodness.
This one is this one I bơ.
Bo.
Ba.
Burr means butter or avocado.
Oh my goodness.
From one word, yeah? And
Yeah.
this one is bỏ. Can you say bỏ? Bỏ means to leave. This one is bỏ.
Ba?
Bỏ means a bunch, like a bunch of flowers, a bunch of vegetables. Bò. Very good. Bò means a cow or to crawl on the floor. To crawl on a cow. And this one is bọ. Bọ means insect.
Oh my gosh, and all from the letters B. Oh,
I would not do well learning Vietnamese. I can tell you that. That is unbelievable.
Goodness. Oh, Quay Mai, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you for, okay, so now we learned, right? So now I should be giving a test. I should test you.
No, you should not.
No.
So anyway, that's just an example how important these diacritics are, and why by not keeping the diacritics we misspell the language,
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, Quay Mai, that was such an incredible lesson. We really appreciate that, and such an important cultural insight too that I think we need to bear in mind. So thank you. You've imparted so much wisdom, and it's just been such a pleasure to have you. But before we let you go, Quay Mai, I know you're coming to the United States on tour. By the time this show airs, you will already be here in the future, which is amazing. How can we find out where to catch you on the road?
Oh, I hope to see as many readers as possible. So I will be tonight the 15th of March. I will be at the Seattle Library, and then after that, San Francisco, Oakland, Orange County, Los Angeles, San Diego, Las Vegas, Estes Park, Boulder, Houston, Washington, D.C., Maryland, East Sandwich, Boston, New York City, Pittsburgh. So the links are on my website. I mean, it's an epic tour. I hope I will survive. I hope I will survive because of the 14-hour time difference. So I will be better in jet lag. But my husband says that I'm a light bulb. When I'm around readers, I'm like explode because I have endless energy because I love my readers.
Oh, well, you know what? I feel like I can speak on behalf of all your readers and say we love you too, Quay Mai. We adore you. We're so glad you're coming to the U.S. and we're so glad that you joined us here tonight again.
Thank you,
so
Quay
to
Mai.
all of you watching out there, don't go anywhere because coming up in just a few minutes, we have author Sarah Penner here to chat about her new novel, The London Seance Society. But first, Quay Mai, thank you so much for joining us and bringing such light into our lives, both with your books and just by being you. We really appreciate it. And we wish you the best success.
Thank you so much. I have always felt, so emotional to be on your show because I said last time, it feels like going to Hollywood, to present stories from Vietnam. And I feel that way because you're my inspiration. So thank you so much for having me. It's my great honor. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Thank you.
Safe travels, Quay Mai. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Quay Mai.
Get some sleep. Get some sleep.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, Quay Mai.
Bye. Thank you. Xin chào. Bye.
Bye. All right. So our friend Sarah Penner is waiting in the wings, and we're very excited to talk with her too. There's been so much buzz about her books. We're very excited about her coming up. But first, a few quick things to tell you about.
Here at Friends in Fiction, we are all about books, from our separate book club to our podcast, and of course, the show that is run by the four of us, all who happen to have brand new books out in 2023. So if you think that you might want signed first editions of those books, listen up. Right now, you can head over to booktown.com and find our Friends in Fiction first edition subscription. Why should you order this package, which comes with 4 books spread over 4 separate months? Not only will you get signed first edition hardcover copies of each of our books the week of each of their releases, but you'll also get a limited edition kitchen towel that says "Dinner can wait. It's time for Friends in Fiction." So you can order this amazing package right now from booktown.com. That's Booktown with an E at the end.
And we might be adding a tiny little surprise in there.
Yeah.
So
But you'll
we
just
want
have to see when you get there.
We'll
Yeah.
just have to see.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure you know about our in-person events coming up. You'll always read about them in our newsletters and on our individual sites and on our individual newsletters. But for a quick recap, we will be in Columbus, Ohio on April 26th, and then in Charleston, South Carolina at Buxton Books in the Riviera Theater on May 1st to celebrate the launch of The Secret Book of Flora Lee. And then on June 6th in Huntsville, Alabama, with Snail on the Wall at another theater for Kristin's The Paris Daughter. And on July 20th, we'll be in our beloved Oxford Exchange in Orlando.
Tampa.
For
Tampa,
for Tampa. I don't know why they always do that.
It keeps popping that up in the script. Yeah, I don't know why, Tampa.
For Kristy's launch of the Summer of Songbirds. And tickets for all of those events are on sale right now.
But there's so much more. You get the bamboo steamer, the Ginzu knives. We are going to be in Kristy's hometown of Beaufort, not hometown, but her town. The town of her heart. The town of her heart. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My heart's hometown. Someone said that and I was like, oh, how cute.
We are going to be in Beaufort, North Carolina on August 1st for a breast cancer fundraising event with earlier.org. And then in September, we'll be on the road again for the launch of my Christmas book, Bright Lights, Big Christmas. In other words, between April and September, we'll be together at least once per calendar month. And you can come to be there with us. Make sure you're signed up for our Friends in Fiction newsletter and for our individual newsletters too, so that you're the first to know more.
Okay. All right, ladies. I can't wait to hit the road with you in person. But for now, we have something nearly as exciting. A deep dive with author Sarah Penner.
Yay. Sarah is the best-selling author of the enormously popular debut novel, The Lost Apothecary. She began writing seriously in 2015 after attending a moving lecture given by Elizabeth Gilbert. Well, yeah. Soon after that, she enrolled in her first online creative writing class and hasn't looked back since.
Sarah graduated from the University of Kansas with a degree in finance. But now, after more than a decade in corporate America, she is thrilled to call herself a full-time writer. When she is not at the keyboard, you will likely find her in the kitchen, in the yoga studio, or running outdoors in the Florida heat.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah and her husband are proud residents of my native Sunshine State, where they live with their miniature dachshund Zoe. And first thing I have to ask her where she lives so I can show up at her house.
To play with Zoe.
Play with the dog.
Drop a pin like in the Facebook chat.
Oh, I'm sure she'd love to just tell everyone.
Maybe I'll show up with all 4 of my dogs. Wouldn't that be epic?
Oh my God. So Sarah's new novel that was just released on March 7th is called The London Seance Society and was selected as the Book of the Month Club pick for March. Sean, can you bring Sarah on?
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi,
We are
Sarah.
so happy to have
Welcome.
you.
Thank you. I have to say, Quay Mai's language lesson just now has been the highlight of my day. I was on mute, but I was reciting the words as she said them.
Yeah.
That was just so wonderful to watch her. There must be something kind of emotional going on in the air right now because I feel like I'm on the verge of tears. Maybe it's all of this launch madness, but her introduction had me over here like with a tissue. So I'm so honored to be here with the 4 of you. And I remember 2 years ago when The Lost Apothecary came out, you all had me on and I was just starstruck and I still am. That has not changed. But I just want to say how warm and welcoming the 4 of you have been from day one, particularly for debuts. You've been so gracious with your time, and it's just such an honor to be here with you all.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Sarah.
Oh, thanks so much
It's our
for saying
pleasure.
that. We love having you.
Yeah.
Oh, this is such an exciting time for you, and that you're taking time out of it for us is awesome. So this novel takes place in 1873 Victorian England. The spiritualist movement is on the rise, and people are communicating with the dead through mediums. In the London Seance Society, Lena Wicks is trying to solve her sister's murder when she becomes involved with an acclaimed spiritualist, tell me if I say this right, named Vaudeline Dallaire.
You nailed it.
I've practiced. They team up and they cross paths with the powerful men of London's Seance Society to solve 2 murders. It is a truly spellbinding tale about 2 daring women, and you always write about daring women, it's awesome, who hunt for truth and justice in the perilous art of conjuring the dead. But as we love to talk about on the show, that might be what it's about, but I want you to tell us what you think the heart of it is really about.
Yes. Thank you so much, Patti, for that lovely introduction. You're right that on the surface, the book is a murder mystery. It's meant to be fun and feminist and full of cliffhangers and twists and all of the things that readers have come to love about my books. But beneath the surface, there are a couple of themes that I think are much more important that are discovered in the book. And the first one is this desire for us as humans to connect with the people that we've lost. So I lost my dad when I was 28, and I know everyone I know has lost someone. We've all lost someone. And so this desire to connect and relive some of those really beautiful experiences in whatever way we can, I think that's a universal human desire. And so we find the protagonist in my story, her name is Lina, and as the story begins, she has lost her little sister under suspicious circumstances, and she does not believe in ghosts. She does not believe in seances, but she is desperate because the police have given little to no consideration into the murder case of her little sister. So out of desperation, she seeks out a medium, which, as you mentioned, they were very common in Victorian London. And she starts to realize very quickly that she, despite her skepticism, actually has some very natural talent in the art of mediumship. So that's the first thing that I think is kind of below the surface of this book. The second thing is a little more fun. There's a lot of truth versus illusion exploration in the story. So seances in Victorian London were brimming with fraud and ruses and tricks. And there were a lot of fraudulent mediums during the time who were trying to make money and draw huge audiences to watch their fraudulent seances. And so while researching this story and then ultimately writing the things that take place, I had so much fun with kind of teasing the characters and the reader with what is real and what is not real. And there are some times where I don't really make it explicitly clear because I want the reader to kind of be holding their breath and turning the pages. And with The Lost Apothecary, my debut, I did a similar approach with the magical realism aspect. And I just love teasing readers and characters with the question of, is what I'm seeing with my eyes real? And is this experience real? Or is this a trick or magic or an illusion? So those are kind of two of the main themes beneath the surface of the story.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about the origin of this story. And I'm fascinated with the fact that your background is in nuts and bolts, finance. But then you give us, with The Lost Apothecary, and then with this moody atmospheric setting of the London Seance Society, you bring us back into this sort of foggy, shrouded world. And you have women who find their way around in these worlds and cliffhangers. Tell me the germ of the idea for this. Because what was the spark that started the fire of this story?
Right. So I allude to it in the dedication at the very beginning of the book. So the book is dedicated to my big sister, Kelly. But then below that, in parentheses, I say that the book is also dedicated to my mom because she was the first one to say, Sarah, we should go to a seance. And my mother is a big believer in the spirit world. And a couple of years ago, she pulled me aside and she said, Sarah, I want to go to a seance, but I don't want it to be something just funny or playful. Like, I want to actually seek out a real medium and go to a seance. So as it turns out, in the United States, there are 2 existing villages that are centered around spiritualism. And one of these 2 villages happens to be about 90 minutes from my house in Cassadaga, Florida, which is
I've been there.
Yes. So we've got a couple people. Anyone who's been there is probably chuckling because it's about one street full of psychics and mediums. So my mother and I went on a very top secret trip because I had sold the book to my publisher, but I did not want anybody to know the topics and themes that I was writing about. So I told my mom, you cannot put any photos on social media. We're going to go see these psychics. We're going to go to this seance, but no pictures and no spoilers. So we went out there, and I am a skeptic. And so I kept my journal very close because I am so much like Lena, the main character in the story. And so I wanted to draw on what was I feeling as I was surrounded by all of these people who not only believed in ghosts, but made it their life profession to help uncover this spirit world. So I kept my journal very close and just wrote down what I was seeing, what I was feeling, what I was experiencing. So that my mother's comment really was kind of the seed of an idea. And I've always wanted to write a ghost story, but I wanted to steer clear of a haunted house. That's a very common approach to ghost stories. And I wanted to do something really fresh and really different. So after my mom said, go to a seance, I thought, oh, I love that word. I love this idea of a seance. And then immediately, given my interest in writing really strong female characters, I said, okay, that's what one of my main characters is going to do. She's going to be internationally known for her skill in the art of seance. So once I had that, I was off to the races.
I mean, I have to ask, did you come away a believer?
All right. So I'm ready for this question because I knew when I went to this seance that after this book came out, everyone would be asking me what happened at the seance. So here's what I will say. I walked into this seance, which was held in the evening. There was 6 or 8 of us. It was a very small group. The lights were off, but he had some candles going. And we sat in a circle, and I walked into this really, truly hoping for some sort of really pivotal, transformative experience, right? And by the end of the seance, I was the only one not in tears because I was the only one in the room that had not had a powerful experience. But what came of it is this. There was an older couple across the room from me, and they were very emotional after this sort of seance, meditative imagery thing that the medium walked us through. And we came to find out, because they shared it with the group, that they several months earlier had lost an infant grandchild, and the mother of that child, who's their daughter, they were estranged from. They did not have a relationship with them, so they never got the opportunity to bond with this infant. And so they were regularly attending seances because they were able to kind of find a source of peace and contact with that child and develop a relationship that they felt was meaningful to them. And so what I realized in that moment was it does not matter if I'm a skeptic and you're a believer or vice versa. What matters, as I mentioned at the start of this, is that we all are seeking that connection with important people who may no longer be here. And if a seance or mediumship is the means by which that couple is able to accomplish that and find peace, that is a beautiful thing that should be appreciated and celebrated. So I walked out actually, I think, learning the greatest lesson of all, which was that this isn't about achieving concrete black and white evidence that spirits exist or don't exist. It's about respecting someone else's experience. And I think that applies to religion and politics and sexuality and so many themes in our culture today, where we're always at war with one another because we believe that we're right and they're wrong. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, we can all be right and we can all have our own opinions. So when I walked out, I realized that was the life lesson in it for me. And it was a different lesson that I went into it expecting.
I really love that.
That's cool. Yeah.
Now, I understand there is a real London Seance Society, or was one. Can you tell us about that? But of course, women couldn't be members. And the famous authors were part of it.
That's right. So the London Seance Society, which you'll read about in the book, this exclusive men's only organization, it's very prestigious. All the men are very affluent. It is inspired by a real life organization known as the Ghost Club, which was founded in London in the 1800s. Charles Dickens was a member. Arthur Conan Doyle was a member.
Wow.
And in Victorian London, these men's groups were very popular. They existed for travel, for politics, for reading, all sorts of things. And then, of course, the Ghost Club was founded for people who were interested in the paranormal, and particularly for those who wanted to investigate the paranormal. But when I was researching this club, what I learned and really struck me immediately, as I need to work this into my book, is that women were not permitted. They were not even allowed on the premise. So I immediately thought, okay, my story features a couple of really powerful, not powerful, but really strong-willed women who are in this repressive society. So I'm absolutely going to find a way to get them into this secret men's club and, kind of see what they can discover while they're there. So I loved reading that women were not allowed, because that was perfect fodder for my book. And women are allowed, by the way, in the club now. It's still in existence. So that's good. We've come a long way. Although there are a couple of, I'm not going to give any names, but there are a couple of clubs in London that are still men only. And that, of course, doesn't sit real well with me, but it's a fact.
Oh, man. Well, Sarah, you mentioned the restrictive society at the time. So the Victorian era is full of rules, traditions, regulations, things like that would just seem outlandish to us today. So your research must have been deep and wide, because the way you convey it really puts us there. So talk to us about the Victorian era for women and its traditions specifically around death, because that's something obviously that's touched on in your book.
Absolutely. So this is, it's something that I wanted to handle sensitively in my story. But the reality is that there are a lot of traditions that we still adhere to today that originate in the Victorian era. So the Victorians were very superstitious. They had a lot of what we might view as kind of strange customs and traditions. And I have this really interesting book on my research shelf where this author goes through and he was looking at all of these old newspaper extracts or pulling quotes from newspapers about how different funerals and funeral processions were handled. One of the more interesting things that I discovered, and part of this is because I love animals and I've always kind of felt a really strong connection with animals, but in these funeral processions, back in the Victorian era, there were no cars. These were all carriages or an omnibus or something like that was driven and kind of pulled by horses. So they would have these dedicated horses to pull these funeral procession carriages. And it was customary in the Victorian era for households who were in a state of mourning to place black wreaths or black ribbons on their doorways. And these horses became so accustomed to seeing out of the corner of their eye these black wreaths or these black ribbons that the driver would not even need to pull back on the reins to tell the horse where to stop. The horse would see that and just know to stop on the street, like we've arrived at our destination.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I discovered that as I was sifting through some of these old newspaper articles. This driver said, my horses know right where to stop. I don't even have to touch the reins. And so I worked that into my story. So it was little factoids like that are so fascinating as a historical fiction writer that we get to it's very fun to kind of weave them into our own invented narrative. But the back of the book has a list of Victorian funeral customs. And I know some early readers have commented that they found that really fascinating additional material.
Awesome.
That's so cool. I have to tell you this because just when you said this, it made me think of it. When I was working on the wedding veil, I was writing about a ring that Edith Vanderbilt wore, and just randomly one night in my feed on Instagram, this ring popped up and it was like the exact ring with her initials and like everything. And my husband was like, you have to buy that ring like that. You have to have that. And I couldn't do it because it had someone's hair in it. And like, I had no idea about like the Victorian custom during mourning of like putting people's hair in the jewelry. And I was like, I just can't wear someone's hair. Like it's so weird.
Yeah. There were emporiums, dress and attire emporiums that all they stocked was Black mourning attire. And sometimes widows who were too bereft to leave the house, the emporiums would send out their dressmakers to these homes of the wealthy, and they would stock them up with 6 months to a year's worth of Black attire, because that was yet another one of the customs. And I think we all kind of know that from media and pop culture. But the length of time that you would wear mourning attire depended on how close you were to the individual. Men, for instance, when on their top hat, there was typically a ribbon that would wrap around it. And if someone who was sort of distant, like maybe a cousin had passed away and you were at his funeral, it was customary for that ribbon to be very narrow. But if it was like a spouse or someone much closer to you, that ribbon could be up to 7 inches wide on the brim of their hat. So there were so many rules. And, today we're just kind of advised wear dark colors. But again, that all traces back to these, the origins are in the Victorian era. It's really fascinating.
That's so interesting. Well, this novel opens with a seance, and it's so wonderfully atmospheric. And from there are twists and turns and cliffhangers, and you take us through it all as we try to find the answers to the murder mysteries. So can you tell us about this plot, and do you outline? Or can you talk about how you plot? I'm sorry. Don't tell us about the plot. We want everyone to read the book. Don't tell us about the plot. Do you plot?
So when I sold the book to my publisher, they bought it off of a 1-page pitch. I'm so sorry. That's my dog barking.
No, we love dogs around here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have little treats for her in the event that she gets really crazy. So her name is Zoe, and she likes to make an appearance on the show, I guess.
She wants us to know she's here.
Zoe, come here. Okay, so with The Lost Apothecary, which was my debut, I just drafted it because I didn't have a deadline. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a book deal. So I had the luxury of just drafting and not outlining. But with the London Seance Society, which was on the heels of the success of The Lost Apothecary, I sold the book on a 1-page pitch, just 2 paragraphs, was really excited. And then I realized, okay, now I actually have to go write this thing. And my publisher wanted it in 10 months. So I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. We love dogs. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah. My husband just got home. So that's what she was barking at. So I sold the book, and then I realized I only have 10 months to write it. So I had to outline the story, and I had to have my editor approve the outline, my agent approve the outline. But what I found was once I actually got to writing the book, the outline helped. And I'm sure you all know this because you've been through the process of drafting versus outline, etc. But I found that I was able to actually draft the story in 11 weeks. So,
oh my God,
because of the outline. So, I still had to ask for a slight extension on my 10-month deadline because of revisions were just taking a while. But that does help, I find, with sort of, as Kristy mentioned, there's a lot of information reveals and cliffhangers throughout the story. So I found that the outlining kind of helped organize that so that I could ensure I wasn't giving away information too soon.
It's so fascinating how different every book is and how different each of us either plot, outline, or don't. Mm-hmm. And Mary Kay and I were together this weekend, and we had questions about that. And we do it so differently, and then all 5 of us do, and still end up with a book. But before we let you go, because you are in an incredibly busy time, I want to ask, how was writing this sophomore novel? Was it a different experience? And then tell us where everyone can find you on the road or online.
Yeah, it definitely was a challenge in that I felt like with the success of The Lost Apothecary, the bar was pretty high. And the thing about readers, as you all know, is when an author returns to write something else, readers want the same thing, but different.
Yeah.
So that's such a task for an author. But I will say I'm very good at compartmentalizing, and I believe at the end of the day, like what matters is that I'm proud of the work. And so I just, every time I sat down to write and to research, I told myself that it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. All I want is that when I write the end and submit this to my publisher, that I feel proud of what I've done. So when I kept going back to that, that helped a lot.
That's awesome.
For readers who are interested in knowing where I'm at, I'm touring for 2 weeks straight, a different state every day, and that starts March 21st. So anybody who's interested in knowing where I'll be can, on my website, sarahpenner.com. I have all of my events there with registration links and so on. So there's a lot coming up, but I'm so thankful every day that this is the turn my life took. I mean, someone mentioned earlier that I had 13 years in finance, and I have no formal writing background. So the fact that I'm sitting here today talking to you all and getting ready to just launch the second thing into the world is a blessing that I don't take for granted.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Well, this is an incredible book. So everyone out there, run and go get it from our bookshop.org page, or go find Sarah on the road. And Sarah, thank you so much for spending time with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for
Sarah. So good to see you.
Okay, and everyone out there, don't forget that you can find all of our back episodes on YouTube. We are live there every single week, just like we are on Facebook. And if you subscribe, you will not miss a thing. We are so excited for next Wednesday night, when we will be joined by Colleen Oakley and Julie Garrick Dalton and Stephanie Marie Thornton. Yes, I said 3 names. Colleen Oakley, Julie Garrick Dalton, and Stephanie Marie Thornton. And so good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram.